really, it's nuts to think about. But out of that, 90% were males. 84% non-Hispanic white, 5% black African American, 3% Latino. And I'm Joshua Littrell, your host here on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast. So happy to have our wonderful, amazing guest, Dr. Marion McNabb today, president of the Cannabis Center of Excellence Incorporated. Dr. McNabb, when we look at the demographics of this study, when we focus on the post-traumatic stress relief and chronic pain relief that cannabis is bringing, I see something that's just glaring at me. 90% male. Where are all the women?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. And I think because we use the convenient sampling approach, so we, in order to collect this data, so we partnered with different, dispensaries that had veterans programs, or like I said, the DAV and the IAVA, to get the word out to recruit veterans to take the study. So it could be, a result of that convenient sampling approach and not targeted outreach for women. But when we also, I would be interested to know, the statistics of women's service in the military, and whether or not this response, kind of matches those statistics. But
I can tell you that it's nowhere near 10%. It's much higher. I think we're in the 40s, mid 40s somewhere, maybe even more than that now. And I look at my wife, who's been in 21 years, and we just had our first, female commander, first female chief enlisted, all these first females. That's amazing right now. It's a great time to be a female veteran or a female active duty member. But when I look at this, the thing that just hit me, and I'm just thinking about it, the DAV, IAVA, which is Disabled American Veterans, and Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. And then when you're looking at the American Legion, the VFW, all these other service organizations, when I look at those demographics, they're almost all male-dominated. Because it seems like the female, you're right on. It seems like the female counterpart doesn't typically grab hold of the veteran mentality when she gets out of the military like the male does, which is, I don't understand it. And I think that's maybe something we should focus on in a future study. but
I think we should.
It's a great question. Why in the world do women veterans not go back to service organizations when they get out of the military? When they're done, they're done, but men seem to, they want that team idea, I guess, or camaraderie, whatever it may be. We'll definitely get back to you all, listeners, with an answer in the next 10 to 12 years. But no, Dr.
And maybe there needs to be a female-focused organization.
Oh, absolutely. That is a great, and we do have some. The American Legion has a great opportunity for women. The auxiliary service. There's some different things, but I think a great female-focused veteran service organization would be phenomenal. So when we look at the age of the men, mostly, that responded to this, 6% were 21 to 29, which we would understand. That's a low amount, but there's very few young veterans. 20% were 30 to 39, 15% were 40 to 49, 16% were 50 to 59, and then that big number that you talked about earlier, 26% were 60 to 69 years old, and then 16% were 70 plus. So this goes right in line with what we're seeing in the medical cannabis demographic of those who are purchasing medical cannabis. And also, even when we look at recreational cannabis, it's an older demographic, is it not?
Yeah, the baby boomers are big consumers of cannabis and a really approachable market right now. I mean, you're older, you have more chronic aches and pains, potentially more insomnia. They can really find a lot of value out of it. I think with the older populations, and specifically older women, there's a lot of stigma associated, or, maybe I'm an older person and I consumed cannabis in the 70s and, it was this way, and cannabis now is much more different. Many different options.
Sure.
But for women in that demographic, I think really face a lot of stigma and education. I think they're curious, and there's obviously some women like myself that are patients and consumers. But I think that age range for some women, just the way they grew up, it was really taboo,
Right. Right.
and so, just need a whole different level of education or, comfort around use now.
Hmm. I so agree. When we look at the top health conditions that were reported from the veterans that reported with this study, chronic pain, boom, that's the number one, 37%. And then we have PTS, as you mentioned earlier, 25%. So we got about 5 minutes left on this one as well. And then 10% anxiety, and then it just drops out after that with 5, 4, 4, 4, numbers there. So we look at chronic pain and PTS being the two main drivers of medical cannabis use. Is that something that you think is brought on by the VA throwing meds at them, or is it something that they want to find a safe alternative to treating themselves other than the pharmaceuticals that can kill them, or to a combination of both, maybe?
I think a combination of both. We see, across the board, chronic pain, anxiety, and depression are some of the most common reasons that, and insomnia, that anybody consumes cannabis. I think specifically for veterans, we should really be paying attention to the chronic pain and PTSD.
Right.
What is really difficult for veterans is then the ability to afford the medication. So we asked, how much are you? So veterans in the national studies spend $98 a month for out-of-pocket medications, taking an average of 4.1 medications. And then when we look at how much they spend for medical cannabis, it's almost triple that. So they spend $98 per month on prescription over the counter, and they spend $343 a month on medical cannabis. So
and that's
without
frustrating.
having insurance coverage, yeah.
How do we solve it? You and I have had this conversation almost ad nauseum, trying to figure out how in the world we can put our finger and thumb on this and let's stop the bleeding. But it's almost impossible until the federal regulations change. But how can we solve it?
Yeah, I would model right now the work that's going on in Canada. So they're providing reimbursable cannabis for veterans. So that's definitely a really great model that we should be looking at. And
Absolutely.
then other models of providing free to low cost cannabis for veterans that is, approved legally is really important. I know a lot of states have some of these programs, but it's company, specific if they're giving discounts or this or that. But being able to give away free cannabis, I know there's a bill in California that's looking to do this too. I think we have more work to do, but we really need to make sure that this alternative treatment gets in the hands of the veterans that served our country and deserve access.
Absolutely. So, Dr. McNabb, if you had to distill this down, the study, the information that you got, is there one big thing that just stood out to you that we need to stand on the mountain and plant a flag and say, damn it, you got to hear what we're saying? Is there something that we can take forward for our listeners to become active in the community and take a message forward of what this study showed us?
Yeah, I would say this study showed that cannabis is not only an accepted alternative treatment or medication for veterans, but it's a desired one and one that's proven beneficial, and not only beneficial to conditions like chronic pain or PTSD, as we were discussing, but again, that point that they are choosing medical cannabis over unwanted medications that cause very serious side effects. So this is a really important point that we need to make sure that there is equal access. And if anybody is interested in using this data to continuing to advocate, please reach out. You'll find it on our website. Please use this information wherever you are, in whatever state, with either your healthcare provider, your policymaker. We intended this study to be, replicated and used and shared so that we could continue the conversation around access, both at the local level, at your city, at your VA provider, at your state, or federally.
Well, if everything goes right, Dr. McNabb, you and I and Veterans for Cannabis and those in the community here in the South will be working together on, bringing this information to the forefront and doing some more studies. That's what we've got to do. But the thing that we need help with is funding. We've got to get some funding, whether it's state funding, local funding, or federal funding that helps put it together for us. We got to be able to get that and make it happen. And you are leading the charge, ma'am. I think you and Dr. Sisley have just been phenomenal in this, and you sharing this information here on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast today. I can't say thank you enough. I know our listeners are overwhelmed with the amount of data and information that comes in, but they're also going to be armed and ready to take this fight to the state and the federal governments, and let's make the changes that we need to make. Dr. McNabb, if somebody wants to get reach out and touch base with you, what's the best way they can do that? Is it LinkedIn, Facebook? How do you recommend them looking you up?
Great. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to the Cannabis Center of Excellence. So you can reach out to www.cannacenterofexcellence.org. Sign up for our listserv. I'm also on Facebook, but professionally, it'd be a great way to link up with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to learn more about the veteran study and the events that we held last year in Massachusetts, please do visit cannabisadvancementseries.org. We have the videos from all of those events. They're also publicly available. Much more information, data shared. They're really great to watch. And I got to give a big shout out to Steve Manzila and Ann Brum for their partnership on that advancement series and the study. And a big shout out to you, Josh, for all of your work and for inviting me to be part of this podcast. And I look forward to continuing to work together to drive change.
Absolutely. Dr. McNabb, thank you so much. The key is that you're saving lives, and that's all that really matters in this. And, as a closing statement, we don't say this often, but if you're a listener, you're a veteran, and you're suffering with PTS, please reach out and talk to someone. You have the Veterans Crisis Hotline. You've got us. If you ever want to reach out to either one of us, just talk. That's the big key, is talk. Don't self-isolate like they're telling us to do now with COVID-19, and don't pull away. Open up, talk, communicate, find a way to laugh, find a way to live, find a way to love. I'm Joshua Littrell. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast. Great guest, Dr. Marion McNabb. She's the president of Cannabis Center of Excellence Incorporated. Dr. McNabb, thank you so much. Thank you all. Take care.
Line over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere, so prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware, we'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, over there.